I had a close friend, and he and I both acknowledged at one point that we had broken into each other's apartments to steal what pot there was. And there was a lot of that shit going on. I apologize for the cursing there. Please ring the bell and give money to someone.
Oh, sure.
There was a lot of that going on. There were certainly a lot of times that I spent money on pot that I should not have spent on pot, that should have gone towards something far more
Christmas presents
sensible. Oh, I'll tell you one of the rock bottom moments. When my girlfriend and I got stoned, ordered pizza, got stoned, went out for dinner, came home and found endless messages from the pizza delivery guy going, I'm outside. What's...
Oh, no.
I guess if pot has one benefit, it's that your rock bottom moment would be something like that.
Yeah.
And not getting your kids taken away from you.
Yeah, no, there was none of that. Well, also, I don't have kids.
Well, that helps.
I had someone else's kids taken away from me, which is even worse.
Sorry, guys.
That's awful.
No, I never... the thing about pot is it was inexpensive enough that you don't wind up going through a life savings on half ounces of grass.
Right.
But at the same time, I was never quite making a living.
Right.
So it was a financial strain.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was such a priority. Mm-hmm. The need, and it wasn't just getting high. It was all of it. It was the contacting the dealer and then making the drive, and then having to hang out with the racist dealer while he told his stories and pretend to be friendly with him because you needed him to be willing to front you from time to time when you didn't have cash.
And sometimes that's part of the fun of it, but it's not like heroin addicts will get physiologically high from the ritual of cooking up the spoon and tying off.
Right.
But it's not quite to that level, I guess, at least as far as a chemical
But
dependency.
it becomes so much of a time suck. Mm-hmm. And I think that was part of it for me, is that it helped me avoid evolving to the place where I needed to, so much of my time was taken up with this ritual that I wasn't worried about how my career was progressing or what I was doing for the world or, any of that stuff. I was just sort of thinking about where's the pot.
And you were fine with that.
Yeah.
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 And you find like you felt more like yourself when you were stoned than when you weren't.
I did.
Yeah.
Although I realize now that was just that I was allowing myself to remain a self that I really needed to get past.
Yeah.
I'm going to, forgive me, I have to wipe my upper lip because I'm dressed heavily enough to be sweating like Chris Christie putting on his socks.
Well, wouldn't you rather look good than feel
putting
good?
on my socks
Anytime.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So, God, there was something I was about to hit right before you brought up the sweaty lip. What was the last thing you were talking about? Forgive me.
I don't remember. I don't listen when I talk.
Okay,
I assume that's someone else's job.
Carl, I do want to get to the anecdote of him storming out of a podcast.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Or maybe the time you performed here in the lobby of the Gaylord on one of Carl's Variety Pajama Party shows.
It's amazing you're even here at all, considering what I've put you through on a couple occasions. So share your recollection of what happened at a show I call lovingly the Pajama Party here in the lobby of my building.
Okay. I do not know if I had met you before that. I don't remember if it was you or if it was the...
Rodman probably invited you, my co-host.
Rodman.
Yeah.
I was invited to do a show. Was it a podcast or was it just a live show?
It's a live show in the lobby, yeah.
And I tend to accept all opportunities to do shows because they cost me nothing. Mm-hmm. Some of them cost me a great deal, but then I make sure there's an audience and stuff. But for other people, I just show up and I'm happy to talk about myself. And I was told it was called Pajama Party, and I would do a short set and then I would be interviewed. And I said, okay, that sounds interesting. I can do that. And I show up at the venue, and I put venue in giant quotation marks because it was the lobby of a hotel in Hollywood.
Koreatown.
Not nearly as nice as this location. The studio we're in now, I sat out in the waiting area, and the receptionist was very kind to me.
This
she brought
was
me
the
coffee.
same building, Dylan.
Oh, well,
That's
then I don't
an example of
understand.
how high you were.
I was not. I was
I'm kidding,
sober by then.
Yeah.
It was in the lobby of this a dive hotel. I'm sorry to talk about your home this way, Carl, but it's a dive hotel. There were junkies.
No, there was not.
And there were junkies in the audience in the lobby.
What?
The audience, from what I could tell, was
That was
just
Rick Shapiro doing
that could be. From what I could tell, the audience consisted of people who had forgotten where the elevator was.
That's true.
The show, there was no stage, there was no lighting. It was
That's
just
true.
the lobby of a hotel where some chairs were set up to look a little bit like a talk show set.
I bet the acoustics were impeccable.
There was a rug that sort of delineated the area on which we would perform. I don't remember whether there was a microphone.
Yes, there was a microphone.
Okay.
Thank you. And an amp.
And I came in and met the people, and some people performed, and then I performed. And I sat down to be interviewed by Karl Kozlowski, who I believe I had never met at that point. And now here's a thing that you may or may not know about Karl Kozlowski, and I understand he's recovering from this now, but he suffers from narcolepsy.
Yes.
Which is a thing you might want to tell the people that you're interviewing before you begin to interview them. So I did my set, and then I was invited to sit down for the interview. And it's not like it was the Tonight Show where you get invited to sit down for the interview and you go, "Ooh, now my career's taking off."
You got the couch.
It was, that was part of the deal. So I sat down, and Carl said, "So tell me how you got started in comedy." And I said, and by that time he was asleep.
Yes.
And I kept sort of glancing over at him, and he was clearly asleep. He was a little bit snoring. I wasn't sure if the audience could hear that or not.
It was a soft, gentle snore.
So it's like my puppy. It was that kind of a snore. So I talked about myself until it looked like he was sort of twitching and coming around. And then as soon as it looked like he was focused on me, I wrapped up the answer. And he asked me another question, and as I answered, he went back to sleep. And I sat there thinking, am I this boring?
Oh my God.
Am I... Jesus, what have I chosen to do as a career? I talk about myself for a living, and apparently the guy interviewing me can't keep his eyes open. And then afterwards, Grotman, the Adam Grotman,
Yes.
said, "Yeah, sorry about that. He's narcoleptic." And I was like, "Well, give me this information first. If I know that, I can time my stories around."
Did you
it.
mention that he was wearing pajamas the whole time?
He was wearing pajamas, apparently. Yeah, which I should have taken.
Appropriate.
I should have taken it as an indication that he intended to use me as an opportunity for nap time, but I didn't know.
Quite the intention, but yeah.
The show has a 2 glass of warm milk minimum.
It's not awful, but I'll bring it anyway. It's been a while. No, but it was awful that happened. I apologize, but then you wrote a rather interesting assessment of the show.
Oh, did I?
On Facebook, and in which you didn't name names, but you really were talking. But you spelled it out quite clearly, and I realized it was me because you were saying, "Well, I just got done with this show where." And I've just never encountered where somebody fell asleep in the middle of one of my stories, and it's so rude and unprofessional. And I should have realized, of course, this is horrible of me, but I took horrible offense, and it was like all hurt and everything, and I lashed out back at you, like, I think privately at least, but still, like, how dare you?
I have no memory of this.
And then that's how we became friends, is because
I have a
you felt bad and I felt bad, and we
well, as long
bonded.
as everybody feels bad,
Yeah.
that's what's important.
I feel fine.
I have a long-standing. Well, wait till this
Well, she's
show
in
is
love
over.
with you, and you feel fine.
I have a history over the past, I don't know, 8-10 years, however long I've been on Facebook.
Yeah.
I do open letters to people, and I don't mention who they are. I essentially subtweet. I've been subtweeting since before Twitter. And inevitably, I say publicly, just general, there was one, dear venue owners, if you are not paying me, you do not get to censor what I say on stage.
Oh.
Your only options are, yes, I want you at my club. No, I don't want. Those are your options. if you're not paying. The person to whom I wrote that letter without mentioning them went nuts. You're ruining my business. Everyone's going to know you're talking about my venue. No, nobody's going to know except that now you're saying it. There's a comic whose work I don't love, who I saw one night, who was he was racist and a little bit homophobic, significantly homophobic and racist, and he started his set by offending me by saying, "I hope you don't mind if instead of doing comedy, I just tell some stories tonight because there's a new thing." And then he went right into stand-up. And it was a way of apologizing for, like, it was like everything about it rubbed me the wrong way because I'm a professional storyteller and that ain't right. So I did an open letter to dear hack comic. Please do not excuse your lack of preparation by claiming to be a storyteller and your act is racist.
That's not why people weren't
laughing. That was me too. Damn it.
No, that wasn't you. And he immediately buzzed. Everyone's going to know you're talking about me because you were seen at that club last night. Where I was like, I was seen at 3 clubs last night. You idiot.
They are now.
But now they. Yeah. And he's furious that I would say that his racist act was racist. And that his hacky act was hacky. He's a perfectly nice fellow. You know, I don't hold anything against him as a human. But I was angry, and so I said something publicly about it. And this was much the same thing, I'm sure, where I was just, if I say it publicly, then I'm going to say it without naming names and be as hilarious about it as I possibly can.
There was...
You dozed off while I was saying that, didn't you?
We lost him.
I saw that. I saw that.
Oh, God. I know.
Lost him.
It hardly ever happens anymore. It was just like, it was weird.
It's Dylan's voice.
I snapped out of it.
No, that's
yeah.
probably because this rat trap has carbon monoxide leaks in every room. Did we not mention that either?
That's an added feature. That's
not a bug.
This is a very nice building. It's so mean. Anyway. Okay.
They prefer to think of it as historic.
Yes. Anyways, no, but so then the other moment though, that is so special between us was...
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing at this. Is a very nice building. Go ahead.
Where do you live?
In a lovely townhouse complex at the confluence of the Mighty 118 and the Majestic 210.
Well, okay. Well, this is a very respected building. Wow. Okay. God. All right. Anyway, so
I will say, because we are across the street from the location of the Ambassador Hotel, and of all the places I've lived in Los Angeles, there have been plenty where someone got shot across the street, but nobody as high profile as Robert Kennedy. So,
fair enough.
Yes.
So you do definitely win on
are
that.
high profile.
Historic murders.
But, okay, so the other incident was... in the first year of Radio Titans, we were in Hollywood in an office that supposedly was Doris Day's office. I find that really hard to believe because that was even more of a dive. But anyways, so we had this show. I used to have a political show called The Cause Effect, and which is now morphed into the fabulous Let's Be Treasonable, which Dr. Dave is bringing back shortly after a brief hiatus. But the thing is, so I had the show, and the idea was that I like sort of center right and my point of view, and I would try to have all types of points of view on the show. And we were talking about the issue that set you off, and rightfully so. I'll totally set it up. Was that this somehow gay adoption came up, and but the woman, there was one woman who was supposed to be on the show who is very conservative, and she thought we were talking about abortion at first, but she showed up like an hour late. She somehow got lost, and then she walks in like halfway through the show, sits down, doesn't pay attention to what we're talking about, and just starts spouting off because you were telling some touching story about how I believe your sister that she happens to be lesbian and has adopted children. Was that the thing?
No. My sister
Yeah.
is the mother of a daughter who was lovingly conceived in an act between my sister and a turkey baster.
That's right.
Briefly
and
filled
she
with
was
mail ordered
criticizing
sperm.
that.
Just
Yeah.
one of the many reasons I don't do Thanksgiving dinner at my sister's place. Mom, get that out of the butter. You don't know where it's been.
Oh, jeez, Louise.
Is that dishwasher safe?
Oh my God. So
My niece,
Child of the baster.
my niece is wonderful. My niece is spectacular. She's now at Stanford, and she's
Great.
I just adore her.
But I think I think she was in general.
She was
criticizing.
She was
IVF or
anti-gay.
artificial
She
things,
was anti-artificial insemination.
Yeah.
She was anti-abortion. She was anti-choice.
Did you know your niece's name somehow?
And no, she was just and I think Jimmy Dore and I
Was he in the room?
were on
I forget.
the-
Oh, God.
I think Jimmy Dore and I. He was on by phone maybe, and we were firmly